What's going on, everybody? Decided to show my shining face here because it is NFL draft season. It's got me fired up and a little sad because the regular season's done. But we're going to get into the mock draft here. But I wanted to take a second here just because this is the first draft video of the season to just kind of preface the plan for the next 3 or 4 months leading up to this draft. So this is going to be the first of several mock drafts. We'll probably do 3 or 4. Things are going to change as we go. I mean, as we sit right here, we don't even have the full draft order. We had to predict the last 6 picks. We have a lot of players that still haven't declared yet too. So things are going to change as we go, obviously. But I wanted to talk about the plan here. We'll have mock drafts. We'll have positional grade videos, top 10s by position. We'll have plenty of talk on the podcast as well. And then we'll have some sleeper talk as well. All of that in video format here on YouTube leading up to the draft. But if that's not enough for you, head over to my Patreon. That's patreon.com/ThatFranchiseGuy. You can get access to my draft board. People that bought that last year absolutely loved it. Full profiles of over 500 players. When that pick comes in, when your team signs that undrafted free agent, you can head over there, see a profile. Most of these players have comparisons, full breakdown into every player. And then also on Patreon this year, and this is more of a tease because I'm still several weeks away, so if you head over there and get this right now, don't expect it in the next 2 weeks. It's probably going to be closer to February that we start doing this, but I'm going to be doing film breakdowns exclusive for my Patreons this year, and I'll just kind of leave it there because I'm working out the details on that, but it is happening. We will have actual film breakdowns looking through the college film of these players, and the people that have those are going to have a say in what players we do as well. So let's get into the mock draft here. Enough talking. So let's start with the Arizona Cardinals, and you've got really 3 really good options here. Number 1 is just take the best player on the board, and that's Nick Bosa. You get a legitimate pass rush established, not just the next 3 years with him and Chandler Jones, as Jones is getting faded out, but you then have that elite guy moving forward who is probably going to benefit from playing with a guy like Chandler Jones. So that's the safe route for sure. Number 2 is you trade the pick away to someone who might want a quarterback, who might want Nick Bosa, and that could allow you to build up offensive assets, which is the biggest problem here in Arizona. And then number 3 is draft Kyler Murray. 5'9", probably the fastest quarterback I've ever evaluated. I wasn't doing this when Michael Vick came out. I do think he is faster, at least more explosive than Lamar Jackson was. Put him in a straight line, maybe not, but the way he just explodes out of that pocket, when those edge players come around and that B gap opens up and he gets a lane, he just teleports from 15 yards to the first down, and that is something remarkable. And for that reason, I am going to take Kyler Murray here for the Arizona Cardinals. And it's controversial. They took their quarterback last year. They don't have a lot of help around him. You might prefer they get some help here as opposed to just taking another quarterback. But it is that reason that I think Kyler Murray is perfect here. He doesn't need an offensive line. He doesn't need receivers to come down with tight window throws. You can craft a much more reasonable offense here in Arizona with Kyler Murray. And he's going to help open up that run game with David Johnson, get some read action going. It's a slam dunk pick, in my opinion. An instant spark plug for an offense that needs everything around Josh Rosen. And this allows you to trade Josh Rosen, which we will talk about in just a few picks here. So let's move on. Pick number 2, San Francisco 49ers. Slam dunk pick right here. I'll try not to say that at every single pick, I promise. But Nick Bosa, just a no-brainer. This team has some D linemen, but they don't really have that number 1 edge guy. You've got DeForest Buckner, who's a monster in the middle. You've got Solomon Thomas, who they've tried as an edge guy, who has been a severe disappointment. He was the number 3 pick a couple years ago. In the last couple games, they did use him more on the interior. I think with Solomon Thomas, between DeForest Buckner and Nick Bosa, and then that's not even mentioning Arik Armstead, who got injured last year, who has some flexibility. You really could have an elite defensive line if you could get some increased development from Armstead and Thomas. So you get a defensive identity on the other side of Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan, and that's something to be very fearful of. And going way back to when Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, I was saying this could end up being a serious blessing because it's not very often a team with an elite quarterback can end up with a talent like Nick Bosa. And with Kyler Murray declaring, it allowed for this to happen. Number 3, the New York Jets sitting here. Now, the Jets know that they need to help Sam Darnold in that second year. We have seen time and time again that second year is so important for the development. Sam Darnold showed some nice things, also showed some flaws in his rookie year. He's a young guy. They've got a new coach there, Adam Gase. But the thing is, the offensive talent in this draft does not exist in the top 15 picks or so. So I do think it is smart here for the Jets to do what they've done in the past and trade down, collect value. They gave up some picks to go up and get Sam Darnold. This gives them a good opportunity to recollect some of those picks. So who's moving up? I've got the Detroit Lions here, moving up from 8 to 3 to select Rashawn Gary, the local product here. He might not be the highest ceiling guy on the board, but he definitely has a high ceiling. But the fit here is incredible. I think Detroit is going to have their eyes locked in on Gary, and I think they're going to get nervous that they won't be able to get him at 8. Not only do you have the homegrown thing, which I do think matters to play for your team, but that doesn't even compare to how good of a scheme fit he is here for Matt Patricia. Rashawn Gary at 6'5", about 285, can play edge. He can play inside. Think Calais Campbell. Think Michael Bennett. And what Matt Patricia wants to do with kind of that hybrid 4-3, 3-4 defense, he can move all around here, pair with Deshaun Hand, Damon Harrison, and establish a really good D-line there at Ezekiel Ansah if they bring him back. But I love this pick for Detroit, and I'm excited to hear what the Lions fans think of that one. It would probably take, their second rounder or a collection of future assets or something somewhat major to move up and do this, but I do think it's reasonable, especially for a team that kind of has everything in place offensively. I think that with Patricia there, they want to beef up that defense, though they could use probably one more receiver. So number 4 here, the Oakland Raiders, really kind of missing out here after kind of getting hot towards the end of the year, comparatively speaking, winning some games that they probably should have lost to be looking at a Kyler Murray or a Nick Bosa. There is still some elite defensive talent on the board, but when I look at John Gruden, knowing that he needs good quarterback play to win in this league, we saw him take an offensive tackle last year. Unfortunately for him, Colton Miller, not a very good player, at least in his rookie year. Donald Penn, I don't see him coming back next year. Seems like he'll probably be retiring after an injury-ridden season, and you cannot head into a new era without tackle play. So I am going to take Jonah Williams here. You can play him at right tackle or left tackle. I'd put him at left. He is going to solidify the opportunity for this offense to either get things going with Derek Carr or start to establish a good surrounding core for perhaps a quarterback of the future like a Trevor Lawrence or Jake Fromm. So it's not a sexy pick. It's not what the Raiders fans are going to want, but this is an investment in the plan here in Oakland, and that is a 2 or 3 year rebuild. So the next pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and this is going to be kind of one of the bigger, reaches as we're sitting right now, but this was actually one of the easiest picks for me to make. And for the Tampa Bay Bucks, we are going to take Byron Murphy, a corner out of Washington. Reminds me quite a bit of like Denzel Ward or Jair Alexander last year, who both had very good rookie seasons. 5'11", 185, can run like the wind, excellent in coverage. Now, he declared early here, so he wasn't necessarily on people's radar while we were talking about guys like Greedy Williams as the number 1 corner in this class. But I think leading up to the Combine, and especially after the Combine, when people see this guy run, he is going to be the consensus number 1 corner in this class and very well could go in the top 7 picks here. So keep an eye on Byron Murphy. It's a little bold right now, but I think in a couple months this is going to play out. Number 6, the New York Giants. And what do you do here? You still got some good defensive options on the board. Probably a little early to reach for like a Greg Little or someone at tackle. You got Eli Manning, this whole situation at quarterback. What do? I am going to trade this pick to the Arizona Cardinals for Josh Rosen. And what a fit this would be. They did a decent enough job to make this offensive line a little more serviceable last year. They still got work to do, but the value just isn't there at this pick to draft a tackle or a guard. So you get the quarterback. They should be able to keep that second pick in this draft to target a guard or maybe even a tackle. But the opportunity here to get The quarterback that, honestly, outside of Kyler Murray, should be a top 4 or 5 pick if he were coming out this year. He's just better than all the other quarterbacks. He gets kind of a reset button. He gets to play with Saquon Barkley, Odell Beckham, Pat Shurmur. So I like the fit for the Giants. And then for the Cardinals, it's a no-brainer. You're not going to do anything with Rosen. And this gives you the chance to move up. And you are going to take Ed Oliver here. Potentially elite defensive player. A guy that we were talking about as almost a surefire number 1 overall pick in this draft before everything shook out in the college season last year. You pair him with Chandler Jones. We've seen what Aaron Donald can do on the interior in that same division. So you're almost replicating what you're seeing because Kyler Murray is just like Russell Wilson, maybe even a little faster, and Ed Oliver does compare to Aaron Donald coming out. Some people will say he's undersized. I love undersized D linemen. Those that know my channel know that. So screw it. We're calling this a slam dunk move, both for the Giants and the Cardinals. Number 7, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And there is one glaring need. You will hear people say all they need is a quarterback. I disagree with that. I think they have other holes as well, but they certainly do need a quarterback. There's no denying that. Dwayne Haskins here for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Interesting prospect. He's going to come out and be a high-end, short to intermediate passer. He will hang in the pocket. He is really the opposite of Blake Bortles. Does not look to run at all, which was a big criticism of Blake Bortles as he panicked and started running too much. Dwayne Haskins is going to keep his eyes downfield, step up in the pocket. He can deliver a short cross, a corner route, a slant, whatever you need. I don't know his upside in terms of being an elite guy, being an incredibly vertical passer, but he gives you instant spark plug confidence at the Jacksonville Jaguar quarterback position, which is more than they can say for the last 4 or 5 years of this team. So he is going to stabilize that offense and allow that defense to perhaps get back to playing at that elite level as they still kind of have a window here. I don't know if it's going to fix everything, but it should get them back into a competitive nature there in Jacksonville. So I like this pick. Number 8, the New York Jets. We've seen this team do this in the past. They trade down and an elite defensive talent just falls into their lap. Leonard Williams happened, Jamal Adams, and now Josh Allen. So in the AFC East, we're going to have Josh Allen getting after Josh Allen, which is going to be a little annoying. But Josh Allen is a high-end edge rush prospect, elite athlete, has finesse, has power. He can even cover. I don't know what scheme this team's going to run with the coaching changes here, but he can play either one. I know we traded down for offense, but this Jets team just has had so much success having those elite defensive talents fall to them after trading down that I think they will repeat that formula, use some of those picks that they collected when moving down with Detroit to maybe go offense. And then number 9 here are the Buffalo Bills. Same thing can be said about this team as we said about Arizona and the Jets. This team needs to focus on offense and establishing a good surrounding core for Josh Allen. Now, Josh Allen can make some things happen. He doesn't necessarily need a great offensive line or those receivers to make an impact on his game just because of his running ability. But if you want him to develop into an elite quarterback, which he has the upside of, and I think this team believes that they can get there, but not without a better offensive line and better receivers. And the value here at receiver is not there. So I will take Greg Little, the tackle out of Ole Miss. A little risky, but he's not unlike Deion Dawkins, who they already have at left tackle. You can put Greg Little at right tackle and hopefully have the 2 tackles of the future here with Josh Allen. I think it's a great pick. And then number 10, the Denver Broncos, another team that needs offensive line and quarterback play. There's so many of these teams like that. The value is just not there right now in this draft with the guys that are off the board. So I think you look at the hire here of Vic Fangio, defense. Yeah, you got Von Miller, you got Bradley Chubb there, but outside of those 2, which is a lot, you can create a good defense with those 2. But outside of those, who do you really have here? You got Chris Harris, but he's getting up there in age. He's still a great player, but I don't know how long you can count on that. I think Vic Fangio is going to want defense here. That's where the value is as well. So we're going to take Quinnen Williams, who's had a bit of a fall here. I could see some off-the-field things popping up here with Quinnen Williams, kind of like some Jalen Ramsey-esque. He talks a lot of crap. Not necessarily saying it's going to like hinder his career, but I could see some teams, having a slight mark-off for his off-the-field grade. And I can already hear people saying, oh, but Ed Oliver got kicked out. I get it. I think Ed Oliver just has a higher ceiling. But regardless, the value is absolutely here with Quinnen Williams. You pair the edge combo here with a dominant interior threat, and I mean, Vic Fangio is basically repeating what he had now with Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks. Now with Von Miller, Quinnen Williams, and Bradley Chubb on the other side too. So then number 11, the Cincinnati Bengals could use offensive line help, but again, the value really not there. So I'm going to look defensively. They need to get faster at the linebacker position. Vontaze Burfict, I think, is probably done. They don't really have anyone else there. I like their defensive line. Their secondary is pretty solid. They could use another corner, which you might think about like a Greedy Williams here, but I'm going to take Devin White. Instant speed at the linebacker position. Not quite what Roquan was coming out last year, but not too far off either. So I think this is a no-brainer here for the Bengals. And then number 12, the Green Bay Packers. This is a tough spot for Green Bay because I think having picked this high for the first time in years, they were, maybe thinking they could get one of these blue chip defensive players to fall to them. I think there's one blue chipper left, and that's Greedy Williams. But Green Bay just drafted 2 corners last year. Jaire Alexander looks like a nice player. You still got Kevin King here. Not that they don't need corner, but I just don't see them pulling the trigger here on Greedy Williams. I think they're actually going to trade down here with the Carolina Panthers, collect some assets, move down as we've seen them do so many times in the past, and make sure they get value for each pick. It's always been a big strategy there in Green Bay. So the Carolina Panthers here are going to move up here to number 12, and cornerback was a huge issue for this team. I do like Dante Jackson, young, super fast player out of LSU, but they need guys around him. So we are going to take Greedy Williams, Jackson's college teammate. You recreate that LSU secondary here for the Carolina Panthers. They move up and get probably the last blue chip defensive player in this class. And then number 13, the Miami Dolphins. Tough spot to make this pick here, but I think this might be viewed as this team's best chance to get that quarterback replacement for Ryan Tannehill. So we are going to take Daniel Jones here out of Duke. Shows flashes of being like a Carson Wentz. I think he's probably closer to Mitch Trubisky. He has really good athleticism, but he can spray throws. He's kind of got that solid pocket sense, kind of knows when to run. So I like Daniel Jones here. I don't know if he's going to be elite or not. You might just end up with another Ryan Tannehill here, but I think it's worth the shot here at 13. You're not really risking, leaving some elite talent on the board. There's obviously good talent out here, but it's not like you're passing on like a Josh Allen or a Quinnen Williams to make this pick. So I think the spot is good here. The fit is good here. So we're going to take Daniel Jones. Number 14, the Atlanta Falcons. This pick kind of stood out to me. Clelin Ferrell out of Clemson. Edge rusher. Now, this team has speed off the edge. They've got Takk McKinley. They currently have Vic Beasley. They should probably just cut ties with him. But Clelin Ferrell is unlike Vic Beasley. He's unlike Takk McKinley. He is entering the NFL as a completely polished edge rusher. He reminds me a decent amount of Derek Barnett coming out for Philly a few years ago. He's going to play the run. He is built already. It's not like Vic Beasley, PTSD, drafting another Clemson guy who was way undersized. Clelin Ferrell is fit for this 4-3 scheme. He might even be able to come inside on third downs like we know that this Seattle scheme likes to do. A great fit here. They have plenty of speed on that defense. And the knock on Ferrell is he doesn't have elite speed. He's got plenty of speed to be an edge rusher, but he's not like Von Miller out there. But this offers a different element to this defense. And it allows you the opportunity to move on from Vic Beasley and stop playing this rotation of run defending guys on the edge opposite of Takk McKinley. So moving on, the Washington Redskins. A lot of people think quarterback here. We've already had a lot of these quarterbacks come off the board now, though. To me, I look at the secondary. Safety has all of a sudden become an issue here for Washington. You let DJ Swearinger go. Clinton Dix is going to need to be re-signed. I don't know if they're going to do that or not because he was not very good for them. So maybe you think about Deontay Thompson. We know they have a bit of a Bama preference that they're showing now with some of these guys on that side of the ball. So you could think about that, but I'm going to take a corner here just with Josh Norman not getting any younger. This team likes ball hawks. They like instinctive corners. But I'm going to take Trayvon Mullen here. Out of Clemson, back-to-back Clemson players here. Washington gets a solid corner there that can plug right in and start in the nickel or outside, wherever they choose to use him. And then number 16 here, the Green Bay Packers, who moved down with the Carolina Panthers. Tough to see some more defensive talent go there. That was 3 of the last 4 picks on defense since they traded down. Most of the value left here is at defensive tackle, which is probably the biggest strength on this team outside of quarterback. But I do think this team recognizes a serious problem of speed on offense, and I think that is going to be a big stressor for the new coach here, Matt LaFleur. He has seen what just raw talent and speed can do if schemed up the right way in LA. And he has also witnessed what a lack of speed can do to your offense, having worked with Tennessee, who just doesn't have a lot of skill talent there. So I think he's going to put a premium on getting some more offensive weapons here to work with, to scheme around. And I'm looking at Marquise Brown, who is a risky prospect. He's quite a bit like Brandon Cooks coming out. And I've been critical of Brandon Cooks because people see him as this elite receiving threat. I don't think that's who he is. I don't think that's who Marquise Brown is. But he is a guy that comes in and is instantly a deep threat, allows Aaron Rodgers to send that ball deep, to open up the offense, to work off play action, to come from one side of the field to the other, and offer some good catch and run ability and take some pressure off Devontae Adams. And another significant reason you take Marquise Brown here, who just might be a bit of a reach, but I don't think it's that far off, is kick return that just plagued this Packers team. This team turned the ball over seemingly at every big moment this year. It was one of the lowest rated special teams units in the NFL. So you knock out 2 big needs with this first round pick and you move down to do it. So number 17 here, the Cleveland Browns. Crazy to say it, but this roster's pretty loaded. They could certainly use some receiving weapons here, but I just don't know if the value is there at receiver. I'm not huge on any of these receivers. Even Marquise Brown I've got questions about, but he's gone. So I look at the tackles here. They're fine, but if you want to continue to develop Baker and protect him and get the most out of him, I really don't think starting Greg Robinson at left tackle is going to be an answer. So we are going to take Rodney Cajuste here out of West Virginia. You can play right tackle, you can play left tackle, but you knock out a huge need here for Cleveland. And you're getting closer to having, honestly, a elite offensive line if Cajuste pans out, because the interior here in Cleveland is fan-freaking-tastic. So moving on to number 18, the Minnesota Vikings. Probably a little disappointed to see Rodney Cajuste go there. Guard is a huge need for Minnesota, but I tweeted this out. You look at the guards that have gone from 11 to 32, heading back to 2015, it ain't pretty. A lot of teams reach for guards here. Minnesota does have other needs as well. I don't know if the value's here at guard, so I'm going to look at Jeffrey Simmons, defensive tackle out of Mississippi State. Now, the thing I like about him, as opposed to like Lawrence out of Clemson or Derek Brown out of Auburn, is Jeffrey Simmons a little quicker on the interior. He definitely fits more of that Sheldon Richardson role that Zimmer's going to want here, in that he can play great run defense. He really can, but he can also be a good pass rushing interior guy. So I think Zimmer's going to like the versatility here. The value is excellent in a thinner defensive class. Jeffrey Simmons is probably more of a top 12 value, but this class is just absolutely loaded at defensive tackle. So the Vikings almost luck into a guy that they might not normally have had a chance to get. And I don't think you reach for a guard when that opportunity is there. So then number 19, Raekwon Davis, another great defensive tackle that, again, probably would have been a top 12 pick or so in a regular draft class. 6'7", 315, versatile dude. He might even be able to play outside as an edge on early downs. But Tennessee, in that 3-4 scheme, you pair him with Jarrell Casey and some other good defensive linemen here, the edge rushers they have here, Harold Landry. But you plug him right in there at that athletic 3-4 end type 3 technique, and he can wreak some havoc here. This team needs receiver help, but again, I don't love the value here at receiver. So great pick here for Tennessee, if you ask me. The reason I didn't go Raekwon for Minnesota there is just that extra length. I don't know if he's going to be as good in run defense as Minnesota's going to want. So Raekwon might actually have the higher ceiling, but I think Simmons is a safer pick for a team like Minnesota, who is looking to win a Super Bowl this year. And then number 20, the Pittsburgh Steelers. This was really easy for me. DeAndre Baker, corner out of Georgia. This is a good cornerback class now, especially with Byron Murphy coming out. Baker is everything you look for in a first-round corner. He's athletic. He's got the length. Played at a high level of competition. Huge need for the Steelers here. Don't think we're going to get much argument on this pick, and I think this is going to be a pretty common mock here. DeAndre Baker, corner out of Georgia, to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number 21, the Seattle Seahawks, and this is interesting because they can really go in any direction. We talked a lot about this team supposedly blowing this year up and kind of taking a year off to build this thing up, but they make the playoffs. And they got a lot of development from players we didn't see coming. So they have a lot of ways they could go here to add talent. I think they just go the best player available here, but they also have a need here at safety. So Deontay Thompson, safety out of Alabama, he just plays like a Seahawk. He flies to the ball. He might be a little undisciplined at times, but when he shows up, he shows up to hit. He's not quite as big as a Cam Chancellor. I don't think he's as rangy as Earl Thomas, but they're going to find a way to maximize this guy's skill set. I think Bradley McDougald back there can be more of that free safety if you allow Deontay Thompson to be more of that Cam Chancellor role. A little different, but I think they're gonna really like this pick, Deontay Thompson there to the Seattle Seahawks. Number 22, Baltimore. I struggled with this pick. A lot of people are mocking receiver here to Baltimore. How the hell can you take a receiver if your quarterback is only targeting your receivers 8 to 12 times a game? And we know Lamar Jackson's going to be starting here next year. And the talent here at receiver isn't even there to begin with. I can almost guarantee you if they take a receiver here, he will be a bust. Because Lamar Jackson just doesn't use his receivers. He's going to use those tight ends. He's going to run the ball. And they're going to play football between the numbers. I just don't think this team is going to put a premium on receiver. I just don't. So I think they go just kind of best fit, best value here. I thought maybe about offensive line, but like maybe you think about Elgton Jenkins here. But I look at Zach Allen out of Boston College, 6'5", 285, kind of played edge in college, but you look at what this defense is going to be able to do with him as a 3-4 end. Maybe play inside or outside. Like he can play anything from a 3-tech to a 5-tech. And we're talking about just an absolute grinder. He's going to be a Harbaugh type of guy that he's going to buy into the play like a Raven thing. This team does an incredible job developing these defensive linemen. But they're kind of missing this move lineman. Like they've got Brandon Williams. They've got, what's his name, the other D tackle there, but those guys are like 340-pound nose tackles. They are missing this move piece that can play run defense but also rush and can move across and become a mismatch problem across opposing offensive lines. Now, they already have a great pass rush. It's going to get even better with Zach Allen. So number 23 here, the Houston Texans. We mentioned Elgton Jenkins to the Ravens before. Well, this is going to be it for Houston. Now, it's not the biggest need. They've got Zach Fulton. They've got Nick Martin. But the thing is here, Houston gave away picks to go get Deshaun Watson. They cannot miss on this pick, and they need tackle help, but I don't know if any of the tackles left are anywhere close to day one guaranteed starters. They very well could be, but you can't miss here. So I'm going to take Elgton Jenkins, who might be the safest, best lineman in this class, even though he's just a center. And you can figure out what you want to do between Nick Martin and Elgton Jenkins as far as who's going to play left guard and who's going to play center. But you at least get a good interior group there, and you can figure out the tackles at another date. So then moving on, the Oakland Raiders, number 24 here. I think I just puked in my mouth a little bit. This is the pick that they essentially gave up for Khalil Mack. They're going to get a pick swap in next year's class that is probably going to be a movement of about 10 picks. So this is just disgusting, especially because we are going to take a pass rusher here. I think I just threw up again. Absolute travesty that you are basically trading Khalil Mack for Ja'Kai Polite here. Polite's a nice player. He's never going to be half the player Khalil Mack is. He has upside for sure. Definitely screaming up draft boards later through the season. He's a very good speed rusher. He's got some good moves. He's got some power. I guess if anyone in this class was going to become Khalil Mack here at the 24th pick, it would be Ja'Kai Polite. So, good for you, I guess. I think it's going to go down as the worst trade in NFL history. Number 25, the Philadelphia Eagles sitting here. Biggest need for me here is tackle. Jason Peters, I think, is going to hang it up after this year. He was beat up all year, just did not necessarily feel like he was having a fun time playing football anymore. It's usually a sign that things are done. Hal Vaitai, decent player, not the guy you want to be your franchise left tackle, protecting your quarterback who now had another season-ending injury. So you got to keep Carson Wentz safe. Only problem here is the value's not there. So I'm going to trade down with the Denver Broncos, target to tackle if you're Philly later in this draft. But Denver needs a quarterback. We're going to move up and take Drew Lock. Now, it screams Paxton Lynch all over again. I get it. Broncos fans may or may not like this. Drew Lock is not Paxton Lynch, Broncos fans. I can at least secure you of this. Paxton Lynch was an absolute reach. I had a 6th round grade on Paxton Lynch when they drafted him. I have a 1st round grade on Drew Lock. He is accurate, unlike Paxton Lynch. He is much more calm in the pocket, although I think he's kind of got that Derek Carr, Marcus Mariota thing where he's almost too calm and like doesn't really know when to sense pressure, when to run. So that's kind of my biggest question with him. But he's athletic, but he doesn't rely on his athleticism. You know, he's kind of that boom or bust prospect this year. And the beauty is that he doesn't have to start right away. You can still go with Case Keenum. You can develop Drew Lock. You don't have to rush him in. I do think we would see him at some point in that first year. But you knock that first pick out of the park with Quinnen Williams, and now you move up and get a chance at a quarterback. So number 26, the Indianapolis Colts. And, you know, real quick here, I don't like drafting Ole Miss players. I think it's a cancerous culture there. I don't think the players that come out of that have a high history of being good workers. Like, I'm not trying to hate on that organization, but all the signs point to just an organizational disaster there, and the people that go there are just going there to get paid on the side and all this stuff. So it's hard to split that from the really legitimate prospects. So I'm going to take DK Metcalf here for Indianapolis, whose comparison for me was Josh Gordon. Not necessarily because he's got, you know, drug history or is a criminal or anything. It's more just the red flags are there because I do have a bias against Ole Miss players. I think that's justified at this point. You look at Laquan Treadwell, Robert Nkemdiche, Laramie Tunsil had a pot issue coming out. Really, all of these DK Metcalf types do not have a history of being great NFL players and working towards that second contract. But I also don't have anything against DK Metcalf specifically. So I'm trying to split that in part here. And the other problem with DK Metcalf is injuries that give him red flags as well. He missed his freshman season, and then he had a pretty significant neck injury here in his 3rd season. So I love DK Metcalf, the player. He's everything you look for in a true number 1 receiver, and the upside is absolutely there, and that's why I'm willing to pick him here. And I love pairing him with the culture in Indianapolis, with Frank Reich, with Andrew Luck. Like, he could bust, absolutely, but if you hit here, you pair T.Y. Hilton with basically a Josh Gordon who doesn't have off-the-field issues. Like, if he can stay healthy and be a good worker in the NFL and see his upside, like, you may have just taken Julio Jones with the 26th pick. So we're going to take DK Metcalf here for the Colts. It's a high risk, but what a high reward pick. And because of the draft they had last year, you allow yourself to make this pick. Because if you miss, well, you just absolutely hit your last 2 first and second round picks out of the park, so it doesn't matter as much with Quentin Nelson and Darius Leonard. So now number 27, the Oakland Raiders picking again. And again, ironically, we're sitting here. They gave this pick. They gave Amari Cooper to get this pick, and right now their biggest need after drafting a tackle and an edge rusher is probably wide receiver. So good job, John Gruden. But the value's not there. I know Gruden's going to want to make something of this pick after giving Amari Cooper up, but this is what I would do, Mock. I'm not going to reach for a receiver, especially with DK Metcalf gone. I just don't necessarily see the value here. I did think about either N'Keal Harry or Kelvin Harmon, who are the type of players that we've seen Derek Carr be successful with, like Michael Crabtree, who can be that jump ball, back shoulder guy, and both Harry and Harmon are plus in that department. So you could absolutely take one of them. But if you can get some value here, move down, and then still get one of those 2 guys at 33, I think you do it. So Arizona is going to trade up here, and they're going to take Irv Smith. Uber athlete tight end out of Alabama. My comparison for him is Jordan Reed. He's great after the catch. Short to intermediate game, he will kick your ass. Not much of a blocker, but Arizona needs receiving threats. He can learn from Larry Fitzgerald how to kind of play that big physical slot receiver type. He's going to offer a weapon that they can move around in play action and get creative with Kyler Murray there. So a great pick here for Arizona. They don't have to give up much to move up 5 picks to do this. Maybe, 4th round pick and a future or something, probably not even going to need to give up their first pick in the 3rd round to do this. That's honestly quite a bit. So then number 28, the New England Patriots, who are going to get their Gronk replacement here, Noah Fant. Now, he's not quite Gronk. He's not as physical of a blocker. But as a receiver, he's going to give this Patriots team the mismatch problem we know they're going to want. I think this is a great fit, a need, and let's move on. Number 29, the Kansas City Chiefs. Of course, we're projecting here these last 6 picks. We're just going to go off of my playoff predictions that I already made. But the Chiefs here, after some shortcomings perhaps in the playoffs, but definitely we've already seen it throughout the regular season, they need cornerback help. And Julian Love, I don't know if he's going to be an elite outside threat. I see him as an elite inside slot receiver. But this team just needs guys that can cover and can run and play physical, and that's Julian Love. So out of Notre Dame, cornerback to the Chiefs. Number 30, the Green Bay Packers with the Saints pick. You maybe think about like a Brian Burns, a super high upside edge rusher, but I don't know. Personally, I'm not a big Burns guy. I don't like 235-pound edge rushers at 6'5". I just see a guy that's going to get punched in the chest and fly backwards. He obviously has the upside, but you're going to need him to put on weight, to develop a different game. And I don't think Green Bay is in a position to have that type of patience. I think you need a special type of team to take some of these more raw edge rushers here in the 1st round. For Green Bay, and I can't believe I'm saying this because it's a what I would do mock draft, and I've always been anti-running back in the 1st round. But to see what this team was with Aaron Jones versus without Aaron Jones, and I know they have Aaron Jones, but to have that weapon that can catch, that can create big plays, is so big for this team, especially when you look at a guy who's going to implement kind of that play action system where it relies on the team respecting the run game, not necessarily having a great run game, but respecting it. I just don't trust Aaron Jones to stay healthy. He had injury issues in college. He's been injured both years now in his NFL career. I think he's an excellent player, but if you're going to lean on him like a Todd Gurley in this system, I don't think Green Bay can do that. So what I'm getting at here is Josh Jacobs, who can run between the tackles. He will run you over. He can catch and run. He's not unlike Le'Veon Bell as a prospect. Le'Veon Bell as a prospect was a different than Le'Veon Bell, the NFL player. He changed his game, but you know what I'm saying. He has everything as a running back, and I think Green Bay adding a potentially elite running back and speed at receiver and Marquise Brown is something they've never done. But the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Why keep busting on defensive players who you seemingly can't develop when you can just do what you do well and score a bunch of points? So a different change for Green Bay here in this draft, but let's move on. Number 31, the Chargers, and their biggest hole is interior defensive linemen, and there is still a top 20 potentially blue chip defensive player on the board. Derek Brown out of Auburn, just a beast. He's going to spark that run defense that has been an issue at times this year, but can also offer some athleticism and upside as a pass rusher inside of Bosa and Ingram. So I love this pick. Just a no-brainer here for Derek Brown to the Chargers. And then number 32, the LA Rams. And they've got a pretty loaded roster. I mean, maybe this is a team that thinks about like Brian Burns out of Florida State, who has that high upside as an edge rusher. Certainly could be that pick. But I look at what makes this team click, and it's offensive line play. Sean McVay is no dummy when it comes to the value of offensive line in this league. And he also is no dummy in that his left tackle, Andrew Whitworth, after in this situation winning a Super Bowl at 36, 37, like he might be gone next year. If not this year, certainly next year. So we're going to take a tackle here, Jawan Taylor. He might even get to sit and develop, which might be what he needs. But with Jared Goff here, he is going to need protection throughout his career, and this would solidify things with Havenstein and Jawan Taylor for many years to come if he works out. So that is it. I am so excited to hear your guys' feedback. I'm excited to hear what you guys think your team's needs are, what you think I did for your team. I'm assuming I'm not going to make everybody happy. I don't assume that. I know that. But please, guys, if you made it this far, especially, hit that like button. Helps me out, helps generate views. It's the easiest way to support the channel. Just hit that like button. Super easy. So cheers as always. Looking forward to talking to you in the comments, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.